Hello, everyone, and welcome to the In Tune interview this week. This week, we are in tune with Stevo, aka Level 99. How you doing, Stevo?
I'm facepalming because that's such a poor joke.
Wait, where did I, you mean our pun?
Yes.
Well, it's not a joke. It's clever wordplay.
Yes, but then again, the internet has proverbially ruined dad jokes. I'm just messing with you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm Stevo. OCR alum, OCR staff, streamer, podcast guy, and apparently you guys are having me on to talk about some of my previous musical stuff.
Yeah, that's the idea, and I will warn everyone out there, literally the only jokes we know are dad jokes
This
here
is true.
on the OverClocked PodCast. I'm Steven, by the way, returning for this interview.
Hi, Steven. How are you doing?
I heard you say overflocked.
And so the dad jokes continue. So the song we're going to be talking about this week, Stevo, is Fossil's Oasis, a remix you did along with a friend, Steven, who, again, was the collaborator on the remix?
Well, it depends how you read it. I honestly,
Don't say it. Don't do that.
Because, I was hoping you'd take the pronunciation bullet on this one.
See, it has certain words, or I should say letters capitalized, others not capitalized. The correct way to pronounce it, from what I understand, is Luisa. It might be Luisa.
It's Luisa. Okay. It is Luisa. A Brazilian name, and you're going to do exactly what Larry does and call her Lulza.
Oh, I was going to call her Louisa, but that's just different.
No, she has a capitalized L, I, and A, so the beginning and end, sort of like those like the AIM screen names from the days of yore. Mm-hmm. And the capitalized I looks like an L to a lot of people, depending on the font you're using.
Oh, yeah.
So she is known jokingly in some circles as Lulza. Not about her music. They never say that about her music. Her music's always fantastic.
More like Louise Amazing, right?
Oh my gosh. Moving on to the song we're talking about this week, which is, like I said, Fossil's Oasis, which is a remix based on Early Thorntail Hollow Day and Early Thorntail Hollow Night from Star Fox Adventures, originally composed by David Wise.
So, one of those really overplayed songs, like the Wily stage from Mega Man.
I know. It's just, how many times has this song been remixed? It's ridiculous. Before we play the song for everyone, Stevo, why don't you go ahead and just introduce it and say a little bit about what this song is and how you went about making it?
Oh, that's not a small introduction. That's about a 20-minute long discussion, to be completely honest.
Oh, gosh. Okay, just quickly describe what the song is like, or what.
The song is a love letter to the alternative rock days of the late 90s and early 2000s, replete with an acoustic guitar intro, acoustic guitar breakdown with lots of ethnic world percussion instruments. There's a lot of rock breakdowns. There's a lot of guitar playoff between Louisa and myself. There's a lot of times where I'm doing the rhythm. And she's doing the lead, and there's times where she's doing the rhythm and I'm doing the lead. It goes on and on and on. It's a very progressive track. It barely ever repeats itself, and it feels like a journey. The whole thing was crafted to feel like a journey.
That was such a good description. I'm actually not going to play the song anymore. No, really. We'll go ahead and play the song now, and when we get back, we can have that 20-minute discussion about where it came from. So, Here you go, everyone. All right, and that was Fossil's Oasis, done by Lulza and Level 99.
I hate you so much.
So, let's get into that larger discussion now. How did this remix come about for you? Like, what originally inspired you to choose this song?
This was not a song that I chose. This is a song that Louisa actually chose.
Nice.
In order to understand how this collaboration took place, we need to go all the way back to how Louisa and I first started interacting, and that was on VG Mix 2.0. I did not get my start in the video game remixing scene with OC Remix. I was aware of it at the time. I got a bunch of songs from it when I first found out that video game remixing was a thing, but I cut my teeth. I got started on VG Mix 2.0. And that system involved people submitting songs, they would get posted, and people would rate them in a sort of RPG system. They would go all the way up to the highest tier, the Stuff of Legends, as it was called, or all the way down to number 7. And I think there were only 1 or 2 songs that were that terrible. My stuff hovered mostly in the 5s, between the 5s and 3s at the time. I did a lot of acoustic guitar stuff, oddly enough, recording in a $10 Radio Shack microphone, and people thought it sounded way better than I thought it did. I met a lot of people through that. I met Durangen through that. I met Jeffrey Tosser through that. I met Pixie Tricks through that. She's now known as Jillian Aversa. I met Deluxe through that, and I met Louisa through that. We actually met in person at MagFest 4, and a bunch of us all jammed out together. It was Durangen, Pixie Tricks, Jeffrey Tosser, Louisa, and myself, proverbially called the Shumcats, which is a terrible in-joke that I'm not going to explain.
All right.
After doing that, she and I started, sending stuff back and forth. We realized that we liked a lot of the same alternative rock and classic rock and, all of those very aggressive genres of music. And at one point, she was talking about doing a song that was very important to her. She played Star Fox Adventures as a child, and nobody had remixed it, and she absolutely loved the songs from Thorntail Hollow. And she said, would you want to work on it with me, since I know, our styles mesh very well? And I said, sure, absolutely. This was about 5 years after we initially met.
Mm-hmm.
We remixed it in 2009. We did it over the course of a month, I believe, for Dwelling of Duels in order to submit it.
Okay, cool.
And I think it placed in 3rd for that particular month. Afterwards, she's like, hey, should we submit this to OC Remix? And I said, sure. And sure enough, it ended up getting posted in early 2010. I actually think it was the second remix of mine that got posted.
Yeah, it looks like March 20th of 2010.
Yes, the first remix of mine that got posted, this is another interesting story. The MagFest 8 in 2010 was the most important weekend of my adult life. It is the weekend where I met my future wife. It is the weekend where Andrew Lures and I, along with Moonlapse, won first place in Dwelling of Duels. And it is the weekend that I became a posted remixer for the first time.
Wow,
awesome.
So the 24 hours, 48 hours, like from Thursday night at midnight, which is basically when they had the New Year's party, the spy party. That's when Val and I first hung out for the first time. All the way through to Sunday evening, where I came home and saw that The Skies Hold No Angels for Us get posted, a collaboration between myself and Audio Fidelity, Jay Askin.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many events that transpired that are so important to me. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then a couple of months after that, they were doing a mix flood for David Wise and a bunch of other, I'm forgetting the names of the people who worked on it, but it was not Donkey Kong Country 2, the Double the Trouble, I believe. But anyway, so that was getting posted. That was Remix 2000 was DJ P's entry for that remix album. And they did their flood, and then OCR sent me a message. I knew the song was going to get posted, but they sent me a message saying, hey, we want to keep this David Wise train going and post something from his that wasn't from Donkey Kong Country 2. Are you cool with us posting it so soon? I know you had a mix post only like 2 months earlier, but this is a special occasion. Is that all right with you? And I said, sure, absolutely. And that's why there's only a 2-month gap between Skies Hold No Angels for us and Fossil's Oasis getting posted.
Gotcha.
The story of how the song actually came into being is a lot more interesting than just how it got posted. The way Louisa and I work collaboratively is we write some parts and then we send it to each other. I wrote the introductory acoustic guitars and layered them, and I sent it to her, and she told me what BPM she wanted it in. And as soon as she got that, she started making that first section for it and gave me the first 2 minutes. And she told me, she's like, here, you can do the lead for here and then do the rhythm. And I was like, yeah, let's keep things going back and forth. And that all of the sections were done dynamically, either by myself or by her. And like for that second acoustic breakdown with all of the world percussion, I just sent her the acoustic guitars for that and said, here, add some stuff to it if you want. And she's like, oh, this is awesome. It's an excuse for me to get out all these cool little hand drums that I have. I'm like, that's awesome. And then they got into the solo section where I've never been a solo person. I consider myself to be more like David Gilmour, in comparison to, just to allude Pink Floyd to Overclocked University. I'm the David Gilmour to Andrew Lewis' Roger Waters, and I will never forget the first time I made that allusion because he says, I have no idea who those people are. I'm just like, oh, jeez.
And you knew you could never work with him again.
Friendship went into shaky ground.
Andrew and I do not often agree musically about a lot of stuff, but the compromises we make and the stuff that we create out of those differing ideas, it's the exact same kind of fusion. It's more than just the sum of its parts. Whenever I work with Andrew. And the same thing happens with Louisa. Whatever we create, it's more than just, combining our two styles. It's this completely unique third style that includes elements of both, but it's unique all its own. So
to back up a second, when you were just starting out with this remix, was it just assumed that you would do acoustic guitar because that is what you were known for, or because that's what you were comfortable with, or is that specifically something you both wanted to nail?
The acoustic guitar is something that I suggested to her in the beginning because it...
Okay.
One of the first episodes of Beavis and Butthead I ever saw had them making fun of the video for Radiohead's Creep, and to this day, I've carried a piece of that commentary with me forever when it comes to everything I do. You need the not cool parts so that the cool parts seem more cool.
That is exceptionally good and Stevo-esque advice.
Well, no, that's Beavis and Butthead's advice, and I took that. So acoustic guitar, it can be very awesome in its own right. However, when you pair it with something as powerful and raw and aggressive as Louisa's alternative rock tendencies, you have this false sense of what you're expecting at the beginning. It sets the tone for, it feels something mystical at the beginning. It's almost reminiscing. And then from there, it goes into something a lot more in your face, a lot more raw and a lot more visible. So the acoustic guitar was my idea, and I said, I believe that I had mentioned something about sort of knocking people off their feet by getting them calm at first.
Right.
And then the same thing about the second breakdown is that, once you have that initial rock sensation, you need to let the audience settle a little bit. You can't keep them at high octane for very long without burning them out. I'm not one of those people that can listen to 4.5 minutes of just speed metal.
Yeah.
I need to have the sine wave where things, it's smooth, it goes up, it goes down. It's this roller coaster ride, and it's filled with highs and lows. So you got the low acoustic intro, you got the high where the rock guitars come in and the Thorntail Hollow melody is introduced in a rock style. Then it drops out again into the acoustic with all those additional instruments. Then it comes right back in your face with a dueling solo. I go first, and then Louisa goes, and it's just awesome. And then it never really goes back to that calmness except for the ending in order to bring things full circle.
That's something I appreciate about the song, and something you alluded to earlier, is it's very linear progression. It doesn't have like a verse, chorus style of progression and also continually brings in new components. Is that something you two were like shooting for from the very beginning? Did you have that story kind of planned out in your head, or did, as you pass it back and forth, just keep adding different segments on?
I believe it was just the nature of how we did it. I mean, I'm a verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus kind of guy when it comes to a lot of songs because I was raised on classic rock and alternative rock. And it's a lot of stuff how pop punk goes too. The things that are catchy are the things that are also predictable in a subconscious level.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
when Louise and I were tossing stuff back and forth, it was less of a, all right, this is how the song's going to go from the get-go, but more of a, all right, what cool things can we think of to put in here? It doesn't necessarily need to be something new. It also doesn't necessarily need to be something we've done before. Let's just keep adding stuff to it until we feel like we've created something that feels whole. And, you know, as we continued to go through it and things started to wind down near the end, I just said, you know, I want to slow it down. I want to bring it full stop on easy breaks. And that's what brought that last section in. It really does feel very much like a journey. And I know I've said that a few times so far. I agree. It was one of the most organic collaborative experiences I've ever done because it was done in such a short time span and everything we did was so right. There were not any, as far as I can remember, missteps for sections. There wasn't something we added and said, okay, we're going to get rid of this afterwards. We only kept adding things. And the things that, you know, we weren't necessarily adding, we were just replacing. If I wasn't happy with my initial solo that I sent in, there were a couple of flubs, there was a note or two off time, so I went back and re-recorded that, being a perfectionist. I wasn't taking anything away, I was just adding polish to the rock that we had already put in there. And then when we were done, I listened to it over and over and over again. I do what a lot of musicians do, which is called a car check. When you are doing mixing and mastering, and you want to make sure that things sound good, not just not just on your studio headphones or your studio monitors. You basically put it on a disc and you put it in as many different machines as you can. And most of the time it's like, okay, I need to go do groceries. I got to go work out. I have to go meet a friend for a drink. I will burn this to a disc and put it in my car stereo. And
that's when you discover that your song is built entirely out of bass, or the whistle overcomes everything else.
Yes, there have been many times where I've been wondering about peculiar behaviors of a compressor, and then realized, oh my goodness, I have plus 30 dB in the sub-range, and I need to go back there and fix that because I think I just shattered a window.
Yep. I've done the exact same thing, literally getting in my car and listening to something and being like, whoa, I totally didn't think it sounded that way from my nice studio monitors.
Oh, yeah, it's called listener fatigue, and you can get that when you've been mixing something for hours. I experienced this when I did the 2 movie soundtracks that I've worked on. Having headphones on or listening to studio monitors for longer than a couple of hours at a time, you just become so desensitized to the noise. It's just so oppressing on your eardrums that you need to take a break, because any mixing changes you make, it's not going to be accurate because you've heard so much already. You can't make accurate judgments.
You lose comparison points and you start focusing on certain details that don't even matter. Like, your whole context becomes completely skewed.
Exactly. So car checking is a very essential thing from my perspective as an artist. And when we were finished that song, I took it to car check in my 2004 Volvo. It had a nicer sound system than I expected, but it wasn't super good. And I listened to it, and I had a few crits. The bass was a little loud on Louisa's end, but after coming back to that, like once we had our final mix in, I listened to it on loop because it when you get to the end of it, it's so long that it feels like you've been through so many different things mentally. There's so many different images that pop into your head, but you still want to go back and get a little bit more clarity on a couple of those fine details. So it's a song that's long that you want to put on repeat, and those are very, very rare.
So here's a potentially hard question for you that I'm going to cut Steven off to ask.
Go right ahead.
Which is, given how long it is, do you have a favorite part of the arrangement?
Ooh. Absolutely not. I cannot pinpoint anything. I've actually seen there's a couple of people out there who have posted videos of the Super Smash Brothers. I don't know if it's the GameCube or the Wii, but it's one of the ones where you hit the sandbag as far as you can. And they use Fossil's Oasis, that acoustic breakdown, into the solo section.
Yep.
The solo starts right as the person hits the beanbag. And it just goes on. The solo goes on and on and on as the bag is just flying. So that seems to be a pretty popular section for people. I can't cherry pick out of that because the whole package means so much to me.
I'm not sure if it was you showing me or me showing you, but I think this might have been the first OC remix song that we excitedly ran to the other one and said, "You got to listen to this."
It was kind of this. This is the song that I listened to and I'm just like, okay, I'm sold on this OC remix thing because it was like right when I was being
downloaded a
introduced
bunch
to the
of music.
Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get Louisa on here to totally retcon every single thing I said about this and totally show me off about it, because as much as I contributed to this, I mean, I love the melody and the whole writing of Thorntail Hollow, all the different variants. This is a song that meant so much to her.
Right.
I think she got almost a little teary-eyed when we completed this, because it was a passage from her childhood. It was a game that meant an incredible amount to her. And being able to not only assist somebody with that, but to be part of something so important, and more than just, oh hey, I threw a guitar solo in here kind of way. I actually, I worked with her in a creative capacity to create something that it touched her heart because of how much it's close to her as a gamer. That is something that it's an irreplaceable feeling, and it's something that I still cherish.
And that's something really special, I think, about doing remixes, is because it does play on those memories. I mean, composing original music is fantastic in its own right, but remixes have that special place to people's hearts that's kind of unique to them.
You also have an automatic connection with other people who listen to the song.
Right.
Even if neither of you have ever heard it before, you come from a similar place. Kind of on the same note, Louisa has actually done a remix of Escape from the City from Sonic Adventure 2.
Yep.
It's such awesome punk mix.
Oh, and man.
There aren't many songs that are more nostalgic or personally important to me. So it's kind of going in a big circle.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
Really cool.
It's one of the things that I mostly regret from my current semi-sabbatical from making music. It's called life, and it gets in the way.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. It stinks.
Yeah, I am still determined to get back to making music one day. Hopefully remixes, hopefully a lot of things. There's a lot of things on my to-do list, which it's not even a to-do list anymore. It's an appendix for a spreadsheet. Because, okay, I also, on the side, I do my Friday Night Fanfiction podcast, adults only. Don't go looking for it if you're under 18.
What's the name of it?
Friday Night Fanfiction, and it's on the Nerdy Show Network. It is adults only. It gets published every Friday. It's terrible. If you have any sense of decency, don't listen to it.
All right.
But outside of the roughly 2 hours a week that show is being broadcast on a Shoutcast server that I have, I run a 24/7 video game chiptunes station that people can listen to. And it has everything from the original DOS games in the NES all the way up through the PC, current 2015 games and PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. There's 88 weeks worth of music on there, and it's on random. And there are so many amazing songs that I will hear out of absolutely nowhere. One of the songs from 3D Ultra Pinball Thrillville on the Game Boy Color is insanely good.
That well-known hit. Yeah.
All of the music from Microsoft Puzzle Collection for the Game Boy Color is astounding. Absolutely stellar. The title theme from Jewel Master on the Genesis is insanely good, and I keep hearing all of these awesome songs, and I'm just like, oh, I really want to remix them, but I can't because I don't have any time.
The utter tragedy of the situation is stabbing me.
So if you'd like to support this new Kickstarter I'm starting for Stevo, then
oh no,
by all means.
Okay.
You need to kickstart time.
The Stevo return tour.
Yes.
Can you know how to crowdsource time itself?
Outside of the 2 commissions that I've done for movie soundtracks, as well as a funding thing I did in order to get a 12-string acoustic guitar, I really dislike associating money with the music I make, simply because I don't create good stuff while feeling super pressured. It's very difficult for me to, if I don't identify with something, but I have to do it because I'm paid.
In the same way.
So, noble intentions behind that, but give me 5 or 6 years, and I can guarantee you within that time I will at least make one more remix.
Oh, yeah, so awesome. We can at least look forward to that. And it'll be of whatever it was, Peggle Quest on the
don't
Game Boy
feel too
Advance.
bad, because you look at Bryan here, who is a musician, and instead of making music, he is making podcasts about other people who make music.
That's totally fine. You know what? If you can't make music and you want to associate yourself somehow, that's exactly the way to go about it. You know, it's the helicopter mom method of being a musician.
I can't make any music at all except when I whistle and do little snaps.
I figure if I just talk to people who are good at making music, I'll become good at making music.
Yeah, it'll just happen.
That's how it works.
It's like something out of the Axe Cup universe. So if you touch the blood of a musician, you become musician man.
Exactly. Speaking of which, as the last part of this, can I have a pint of your blood?
Well, I hope I haven't thoroughly torn all mystique away from that song that you guys told me to bring.
If anything, you added to it. It's wonderful. Man. Yeah.
There's a story behind almost every song I've done, so I could tell you about the time I remixed Pokemon, the trading card game, video game for the Game Boy, which is...
we should do that.
We're going to do that at some point.
Okay, here's a new idea. We'll have an interview, but in addition to that, for every episode, we can have story time with Stevo.
Just a second interview.
He will just talk into a microphone and tell us good stories.
Are you guys saying that I'm talking too much?
Steven, that sounded like what you were saying.
I'm saying you're making our job very easy.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. As an interviewer, you just want the person to talk as much as possible. So you've done a fantastic job.
Well, you also want them to stay on topic.
You've done a good job of that too, though we did get you kind of distracted at points. Speaking of which,
so you were actively detracting from your own goal.
I didn't say we were good at this. I said you were good at this. Steven, before we close out here, do you have any other questions?
No.
All right. That does it. Stevo, did you have any questions?
When do I get paid?
You've been listening to a segment from the OverClocked PodCast, the official podcast of OCRemix.org. If you'd like to hear more, check out the rest of the channel, or get the full episodes from iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And for more video game music and remixes, check out OCRemix.org.